What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome everybody to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell and DK in the background on the sticks. We're here to talk a recap of the most recent preseason game against the Carolina Panthers, in which the Ravens extended that streak of consecutive preseason wins to 19 games, tying Lombardi's Packers. And that's where I just wanted to quickly start, Jimbo. I mean, it's kind of like what John Harbaugh says. You know, I like what he says. If you're going to do something and it's worth doing, then you might as well try and do your best at it. And the Ravens certainly embodied that, you know, taking on this preseason streak and continuing it. Even though they don't count, they certainly matter. And I think it's a really cool streak. And I think it's a credit to our coaches and players to keep this thing alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been saying it for years, and I think it gets undervalued. But I think part of the reason why John has and you know, similar to Tomlin, not quite the same record, but John's Ravens are so consistent year over year, has everything to do with his depth and his player development. Like, not just his, but the entire organization, right? Like, the depth that they have is impressive. I mean, at the end of the day, the preseason is a battle of second, third, and fourth string guys.
Yep.
So our second, third, and fourth string guys are better than everyone else's every single year since 2015, right? Like, it's just the way it is. So, yeah, that's super awesome. Super happy.
And in a game where injury is an inevitability and
exactly.
a guarantee, having depth is more important in football than any other sport.
Yep, totally.
Yeah, so, all right, now, here's also where I wanted to start. Lamar Jackson faked me out. He got me.
I know, you texted me. This was funny.
He was out there in warm-ups, full gear, looking like he's ready to go. Got me excited, but it looks like he was just kind of practicing that, you know, the preparation and the warming up for the game, but ultimately did not suit up. But I will say, saw him in Hollywood working on some red zone work before the game start. Hollywood looked like he was running full speed to me. Got me a little bit more excited, a little more encouragement around the wide receiver room that, you know, as of lately has been decimated with injury.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really funny because just to add some color to this, yesterday was my brother's reception and it ended at 7 p.m. and I booked it home to go watch it. And I said, look, people are dependent on me. I got to get out there and give my opinion, right? So as soon as I got there, I sat down and Glenn texted me, was like, Lamar's playing. And he was like, nah, just kidding. Looks like he just warmed up. I was like, yeah, so he totally got you. But you know what? I think that's also, speaking of being undervalued, visualizing everything from the preparation, from the pregame all the way through is, you know, that's part of the process too, of ramping up, right? No doubt. So I'm glad to see, like you said, I'm glad to see Hollywood was out there. But dagnabbit, can he get in practice already? Can he just practice, please? Like,
yeah,
I know he's a proven game, like once a week type guy. But can you practice, Hollywood? Like,
the only good thing is that he's shown he doesn't really need much practice.
I know, but
chemistry.
We talking about practice? You know what I mean? Like, he's probably thinking that, right? We know he watches the show, so he's probably like, James, really talking about practice right now? But yeah, it was good to see. You're absolutely right, because certainly a concern as far as the injuries to wide receivers go. But we're going to move through this game chronologically. And then of course we're naturally, because, you know, we have offensive and defensive guys out there. We'll kind of hop back and forth between offense and defense. But Glenn, I want to start right up front with the big boys. Who were the starters up front coming out of that game?
Yeah, Patrick McCarry starts the game at left tackle, further proving the versatility that he brings to the Ravens, and has now played every single spot. And then Ben Powers gets the start at left guard. But then this is where it gets really encouraging. We saw Bradley Bozeman at center, Kevin Zeitler at right guard, and Al Villanueva at right tackle. So at least we had our center, right guard, and right tackle, the projected starters at those spots out there and starting to get some work together. Now, if we can just get the left side, figured out, but really not really positive. We may have seen our left guard, our starting left guard out there as well with Powers, because if Cleveland continues to miss time with the head injury, he's a rookie. So how can you trust a rookie who hasn't practiced to be your week 1 starter? So we might have seen 4 out of the possibly 5 starters out there. And I was a little surprised to see Tyree Phillips not out there. After the game, John Harbaugh said he tweaked his ankle in the second practice with the Panthers. So that's why he missed this preseason game. But it was nice to at least see some semblance of what we might see week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was also moments on top of that, right? Where like the right side of the line, I think it was in the very first drive. The right side of the line looked good. And, with Gus running behind them, just looked like Ravens football again, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so that you're right. I mean, that's encouraging. It's nice to see. It looks like Bradley's getting more comfortable. But, it's really funny to me during this game when Kevin Zeitler was out there, the commentators showed the clip of him doing reps while his wife was, preparing for labor in the hospital. And they're talking about how serious he takes football. And of course, you guys know at this point, my wife's 34 weeks pregnant. She looked over at me and she was like, "I'll tell you what, if we were in that situation, you better be taking those reps. You better be sitting there getting it done because you need to keep this lifestyle up. That's for sure."
That's
right. It's got me cracking up, man. But I'm excited about his commitment. And it seemed like, he's obviously not Marshall Yanda, but his love for physicality of football and his excitement behind mowing people over. I think you can just see it. Like he just gets energized by it. Right.
Yeah.
So
but I will say this, Jimbo, you will see when you're, in a few weeks here, when you're in that same hospital room, or not the exact same, but when you're in the hospital room, not a ton for the guy to do, a lot of support and, words of encouragement, but you're going to have some time on your hands too, Jimbo. And I'm glad to see he was using that time wisely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to bring a few books.
That's absolutely right. But I do want to clarify something. We've said in the past when talking Zeitler that he was a Pro Bowler, and I was wrong. I was completely wrong. He did not make the Pro Bowl. I think when we were
no one called us out for it.
No, one did, and that's what made me dig. And I think that when we signed him over, there was talk like he's played at a Pro Bowl level, and maybe that's where the confusion kind of hit us. But yes, we were incorrect in saying he's a Pro Bowler. He's never made the Pro Bowl. He did make the All Rookie team his rookie year, but did not make the Pro Bowl yet. But I think that we can all agree he's certainly played at that level over his career. It's just not many guys can make it. Certainly, lately it's been more. It's been easier to make that Pro Bowl because a lot of the veterans turn it down. So, but yeah, he's never made the Pro Bowl.
And think about this too. It's his third AFC North team, so he spent some time in the AFC, and he plays the same position as Marshall Yanda.
Yeah, exactly. So good luck making the Pro Bowl last decade.
Yeah, exactly. So unless you're a Hall of Famer,
it's not easy. But I want to get into behind that big offensive line and Tyler Huntley. He got a ton of action, basically
three quarters and then
the entire
some, right?
game. He played the entire game outside of a handoff and some kneel downs at the last 2 minutes. But Jimbo, what did you see from Tyler Huntley? Your guy.
Yeah, a lot of ups and downs. I felt like there was definitely some moments where I was like, "Oh, that didn't look so good." But the thing that I liked about Tyler Huntley was, one, he just kept at it, but two, he seems like, I mean, I already know this, but it seems like it's translating to the NFL. He's a very confident guy, confident in his ability. And I'll tell you what, Glenn, I did not know he could move this well, to be honest. In college, he did not. He had nagging knee and shoulder and nagging injuries all throughout college. Never, ever, ever moved like this. And so I'm happy to see him just being competitive, getting out there, taking risks. I thought he had some nice throws. The throw where Tylan Wallace dropped it in the end zone, that was a beautiful ball.
Yep.
I mean, so I thought that there was a lot of moments to where, if you realize that he's a true backup and, at the beginning of that game, that's a good defense and a lot of starters out there.
Yep.
And he's holding his own. He's actually, because to me, like a backup quarterback is, don't make any mistakes, but you're also not expecting any plays, right? Like any plays that come out of a backup quarterback is like icing on the cake, at least in my mind. You know what I mean? You're expecting other guys to make the plays. But the fact that he made a few plays and put the ball in the right place and seemed composed is all encouraging. I think we got one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think that's a stretch. You guys can press me on that. That's fine. I don't think it's a stretch.
Well, I think he's one of the best for what the Ravens want to do, right?
Yeah, it's definitely in our system.
Yeah, I mean, he's the perfect backup for the Ravens because they don't have to completely change their offense if their starter goes down. Now, we're not saying he's anywhere near where Lamar is. Obviously, there's a big drop-off if Lamar were to go down, like most places. But I like that the skill set makes it to where they don't have to change everything.
Yep.
Now, let's say it wasn't all, roses here, but, he did have the pass tipped and intercepted on the first play. Hassan Reddick, a guy we talked about a lot in the offseason, gets the interception. And they did cause him some problems early on with their blitzing and
That's
him
a
having
good
to throw
defense,
high.
though, man.
Yeah, I mean, they brought some noise. But I tell you what, once he settled in, I think he completed like 15 of his next 17 passes or 16 passes, and ultimately had a really efficient game outside of the two tip ball. He had one tip that was intercepted, one tip that wasn't intercepted, but 24 of 34 is pretty good from what you're getting from a backup quarterback. So I was happy when I thought he moved the ball well, and really, say if Tylan holds onto that ball, which wouldn't have been the easiest catch, but it wasn't tipped or anything. It's not like the defender got his hand. He got his hand in there, but didn't touch the ball.
Yeah, that thing landed in the breadbasket at the end of the day, right in there.
Exactly. Really nice throws. So I'm happy with the progression of Tyler Huntley. I'm happy with, the fact that he took advantage of that extra time with Trace being out. And I thought he played really well.
He's a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a gamer for sure. Now let's go to the other side of the ball because the first half of this whole game was interesting. The first few drives, the fact that after the first few drives it was 0-0 and then at half we went in at 3-3 based on all the action. All right. Yeah. So I think that you talked about the interception, they get favorable field position, and then all of a sudden, we come up with the goal line stand. Right. Yeah. So talk to me about what you've seen in the evolution of Deshaun Elliott, and then maybe like the duo of Deshaun Elliott, he flashed last night. Chuck Clark flashed last night when he popped that dude and he forced the fumble, even though they luckily recovered it. What's your take on the defense and then on those two guys so far, man?
Yeah, they have absolutely jumped off the screen, both of them. I mean, I think Chuck Clark, gets. He gets a lot of criticism around here because he doesn't always make the big game changing play. He's dropped some easy interceptions and stuff like that. But man, the dude can tackle. He is an absolute sure tackler. And what's most important out of your strong safety spot, right? Than a guy who can get a guy down. And while an interception certainly flips the field and turns him over, a big time tackle on third down that forces a punt, is almost just as good. It doesn't flip the field, but it gets the ball back to your high-powered offense. And that's really the ultimate goal from any defense is to get the ball back to the offense without giving up points. So I thought both those guys, but, they give the ball after the turnover, the Panthers get the ball on the 33-yard line. So they're already in field goal range. And then he finds Robbie Anderson for 16 yards, and they get even closer. And then Hubbard gets up and gets 9 yards.
Felt like a go-ahead, didn't it?
Down. Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure it was going to be tough for the Ravens to keep him out, but the Ravens had that. I mean, they got stout at the right time. I think Patrick Queen came in and absolutely popped Hubbard at the goal line and forced that fourth down where Elliott, I mean, it was phenomenal. He took on the tight end, shedded him immediately and made a fantastic tackle on the running back to force the turnover. This guy's been really, really good. And really, after that play, the very next time we saw them on the field, he had a fantastic sack and was just everywhere.
That's what I was going to say. The next drive to me was impressive to follow it up because he had some mental lapses on the screen, and he took two bad angles in a row, and then he made up for it with that sack. I mean, he just shot through there. It was all speed.
Nope.
Not much time for the quarterback to react. That was awesome. And it's nice to see. It's not always easy to just bounce back, right? Like you have a couple bad plays and you start getting in your head and things like that. So to see him have the confidence to do that, go out there and make up for that was awesome. But I mean, look, like you said, Chuck Clark in the right place at the right time, and making that play was awesome, man. I hope this trend continues into the regular season. We saw it last year, but it seems like I was worried that the turnovers via fumble last year were going to be an anomaly, but I'm not feeling that way anymore. Look, these guys practice it. They've obviously honed in on it, and put a lot of time and emphasis on it. So it's exciting. They're putting their helmets and shoulders and arms. They're ripping at that football any way that they can. It's exciting to watch, man.
No doubt. Look, that's the reward of running the ball. That's what the coaches say. You run to the ball, and then you're in position to make plays on the ball if it were to be knocked out or tipped or anything like that. If you don't run to the ball, then you have no opportunity to do so. So they're certainly buying into that. And when you see the results on the field, even if it is preseason, that certainly carries over in the regular season, saying, look, what they're teaching has results. So let's keep doing it, and let's keep running to the ball and flying around out there. And I mean, Chuck Clark smacked that running back, popped it out, and really forced the missed field goal right after that and kept him off the board. But
that's what I was actually going to say, Glenn, is that do you think, this is the real question, do you think the Panthers found, or do you think the Ravens found a trade partner for Vertiv, right? Vertiv is not how you say it? Verity. There you go. I think because he had another nice showing last night, and their field goal kicker missed a relatively pedestrian, simple field goal.
Absolutely. And depending on how much he showed them throughout the 2-day joint practice, if he was consistent throughout then, we might have a trade partner here.
That's right.
And absolutely. I think there's a bunch of teams around the league that are looking at Verity and thinking, man, are they going to cut him? Or are they going to trade him? But I think a conditional 7th is certainly possible if he continues to kick the way he is.
Hey.
But I mean, he's building his value. What, he had a 44-yarder, I think he did.
And they look great. I don't know what Justin Tucker teaches these guys temporarily to be really good, and then I don't know, they have the veil of forgetfulness or whatever happens. As soon as they leave, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. But and then the kicking instructor, I'm blanking on his name, but there's a kicking instructor that's worked there with him for a long time, and I'm sure he's getting a lot of credit for developing a bunch of guys around the league. But then I want to switch sides to the other half of the ball, and I want to get your take on your boy Josh Oliver. He caught a bunch of balls. Let me see. I got the stats here. Let's see. He caught seven balls for 50 yards on 10 targets. So he caught a ton of balls. I mean, he was running around out there. I love what I saw from him. Now, in fairness, he had a couple drops. It was a first down drop, and he did get stripped and had the fumble. But what did you see? Did you see more good than bad from Josh Oliver?
So this is how I'll summarize my feelings towards Josh Oliver. At first, I felt like he kind of made me think of Evan Ingram, with all these catches and 5 yards. You know what I mean? At first, I was like, man, that's not a great stat line. But what I liked, especially in preseason, was that he bounced back after the fumble. He bounced back after the fumble. He had a nice catch. And so the fact that he was able to do that, and the fact that the Ravens trusted him enough to stay out there, even though I thought in my mind, dang, he's upset because he might have said, dang, I just lost my job. You know what I mean? I mean, it comes down to things like that when you got a razor thin margin that you're trying to hold on to. And we saw Tomlinson make a nice catch last night. Maybe he's trying to do everything he can to, if he's going to be the odd man out, to show that he can do enough in the passing game to simulate a Nick Boyle while Boyle's, working through it and be a viable option. So overall, though, I was happy with his showing. I wish he were a little more. I don't know. Maybe this is just it's hard to see in the context of the play, but I want to see some more explosion after he gets the ball. It seems like, I don't know. Seems like he's not as fast as I thought he was advertised to be.
Okay. Yeah.
But overall, I feel good about it. I think his spot is safe.
Right. And that's how I kind of looked at it. Is I think he pretty much locked up that third spot. He got a ton of time, ton of targets. And really, I mean, look, I'm not going to knock the guy for the one fumble. If it becomes a more consistent problem, then you address it then. But let's hope that was a blip. And look, he did have a drop that would have been a first down, but again, he caught 7 balls. I mean, I thought he played well. I thought he moved well out there, and I think he's a lock to be that third guy to make the team. And even if Boyle isn't ready, I still think you got to keep Oliver on this team. He just brings too much to the to the passing game to let him leave. But behind him, Jimbo, I know you're excited to see your guy. Didn't see a bunch of carries, but man, made the most of every carry he got. Gus the Bus, living up to the name, dragging tacklers, running through arm tackles. I mean, he looks mid-season form already.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really excited to see Gus out there, and I mentioned to you in a call. We saw absolutely why Gus really has no need to play in preseason anymore. I mean, he was just sunning guys left and right. There was, I think, the 8-yard gain that he made where he literally broke 4 tackles. And even at the very end, he gained another 2 yards based off, he had 1 foot down and he dove forward. Which is another day in the another day on the school bus, right? Like, man, the guy is supremely talented. Just another great find by the Baltimore Ravens. Another great player development story. And all credit to Gus, too, for going out there and putting it together. And then he caps it off with the chain piece, Glenn.
Man. Best charm I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I mean, the bus, he had I couldn't read what it said on there. But either way, bus. Yeah, it was a school bus. Dude, it was literally a school bus. I mean, how awesome is that? I'm sure that he didn't get that before he got that paycheck. I'm sure that was after the paycheck.
Maybe that was a present to himself off that signing bonus.
And well-deserved because, at that same time, there was a congregation of people watching the game with me, and I asked them all what they thought his percentage was of tackles for loss, rushing attempts in comparison to tackles for loss. And they all guessed like 7, 8, 12%. And when I said it's 1.38%, everyone's jaws just hit the floor. I'm like, well, you can see why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys just bringing
them down by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, goodness gracious. Gus Edwards would have been a first-round pick in the 70s.
Yeah, no doubt.
But anyway, the point is that I'm feeling great about Gus. Hasn't missed a beat. And you know what? To be honest with you, he's showed more in this preseason than old Dobbins has.
I mean, it's hard to argue. Yeah, I mean, he had 4 carries, 28 yards, averaged 7 a pop.
No big deal.
No biggie. Whereas Dobbins, I'm sorry, he equaled him with 4 carries, but only turned it into 8 yards, 2 yards a carry. So not to say that there's any growing concern around Dobbins. I think he's going to be absolutely fine. But you're right. Gus is he's just looked absolutely phenomenal. And it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of balance those 2 guys out. If they both remain healthy, it's going to be interesting to see how they split their carries up. But I did want to talk a little bit defense in that.
All right.
The one thing you touched on a little earlier, the one thing that the Carolina Panthers were able to find success at is their screen game. They ran a bunch of screens, whether it be, bubble screens to the receiver, Terrace Marshall, who we saw make a couple catches, to the running back, Chuba Hubbard. They certainly use that. And this isn't new to seeing, the Ravens being a little bit vulnerable to the screen. And I was listening to, I can't remember who was calling. I think it was Coach Nolan, who used to be the DC here and was head coach of the Niners. He talked about how, setting the edge in the run game is the same responsibility for those outside linebackers to do so against the screen. It's their job to identify the screen and maintain that edge, even if they try and throw it over you. And it's not just in the run game. So you mentioned how Elliott kind of took a bad angle and left himself exposed over there, and that's how they were able to pick up some yardage. Do you think this is just a case of maybe they knew that the Ravens were going to be doing a lot of blitzing? They saw that over the 2-day joint practice, and they just knew they could get some positive yards by doing that? I mean, this could just be a part of their offense. I don't know a ton about the Panthers, but I'm assuming that a screen is a big part of their offense. Any concern the fact that they did have some success in that area?
No, I'm not concerned. It's hard for me to say that any of this stuff is going to translate into the regular season.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much the defense is worried about adjusting their sets or scheme solely based on the offense. I think at this point they're worried about repping their set. Now, obviously there's some adjustment, right? Like based on down, distance, stuff like that. But I don't know how concerned they are from like a true chess match perspective. Mm-hmm. Of making sure that they're aligned correctly. And so, look, there could have been just, like you said, an easy matchup or an easy situation that they saw where, offensively they could capitalize on something the defense was going to be doing anyway, to make sure that they repped it out, right? So, no, I'm not too concerned about it. And then on top of that, did you see the other screen that Broderick Washington sniffed out and blew up? Big boy out there. I mean, I tell you what, he's been a surprise to me because, I was super low on him because I thought he looked the same from 10th grade all the way through college. And I wasn't excited about the Ravens drafting him. And then this offseason with all the shenanigans, it didn't make me feel any better about him. Yeah. Boys looked good. So I say all that to say I'm not that concerned about defending the screen. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you. I think if there was a game planning that they would certainly be able to address that. But look, when you're a heavy blitz team, a screen is certainly a vulnerable spot for you. If you're, the guys responsible, like on the edge, don't recognize it, it certainly could lead to a lot of yardage if you don't jump on it. Because then if you're blitzing, who's left to tackle? It's just your secondary, and of course they have receivers out there blocking down the field, so it can lead to big plays. So be on the lookout, and I'm hopeful that, because the one that bothered me was there was a time where it was so obvious. I mean, the O-line just let everyone go, and instead of recognizing that, the defenders, I think Harrison was in there.
Oh my gosh, it got all three of them.
It got all three of them.
Embarrassing.
And they didn't recognize the fact that they were all turned loose. You'd think one of them would have been like, why are they just olaying and letting me go right by?
Right.
They just turned on the jets and tried to get to the quarterback, and of course gave up a decent chunk of yards over their heads. So
that was concerning. In that point, I can totally get that, because it fooled them, man.
Bad. And
it made me think of, remember remember the Titans? He's like, let him through.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's like, it was just like, you got to think, dude, this is way too easy. Something bad is about to happen.
Exactly. You'd hope that one of the guys would have kind of keyed on that, but this is preseason, and it's good that they got that look, and maybe they can learn from it going forward. But switching back to the offensive side, I was super impressed with Tylan Wallace. You've been talking about him a lot in this training camp. You've always liked what you've seen from him. He was impressive. Got a couple catches where he turned them into bigger plays with some yak yards, broke a tackle, and got him into the red zone. Did have that drop on it was been a tough catch. He had to come back for the ball. It was a beautiful throw from Tyler Huntley, and he did drop it. But outside of that, was ultra impressive. What'd you see from Tylan?
Yeah, one word comes to my mind when I see Tylan Wallace play. It's polish.
Mm-hmm.
He's a polished player. As much as we talk about Rashad Bateman and his route running and his, his lateral movements and his fluidity, Tylan Wallace has every bit of it. Yeah. In my opinion, I don't think that's an overstatement or hyperbolic in any way. He's definitely right there as far as his polish, his technique. I think he's got real big game, big play ability. And I think we're going to start to see, he's so young in his NFL career and the things he's already doing. Look, it's the preseason. So maybe I'm like building a couch out of straws, right? Like maybe I'm making way too much of this. But no, I think it's there. I think the kid's got it and he's flashing and I'm excited. I tell you what, man, I'm waiting for him to score a touchdown and then pull Tylenol out of his sock and just start throwing it. Or instead of like beast mode, how they threw the Skittles, his power pellets on the field, they just start throwing extra strength Tylenol out there. Like, how awesome would that be, right?
That would be awesome. He would certainly get a couple of dollars taken from him by the league if he breaks out pill. And maybe not the best look right now. There is a bit of a pill issue. Certainly,
that's true.
The issue around Baltimore. But yeah, I think I hope that the Tylenol nickname catches on, because he didn't have that in college. This started, it's the only time I've ever heard it is right here, and I have to give you credit. You were the first to say it. So yeah, hopefully
I'm pushing for it, Glenn.
Yeah, absolutely. And why not? I think he looked great. That out route he ran, stuck his foot in the dirt and got outside. Something we've been wanting to see more of is that outside numbers passing to an outside receiver, and certainly saw that from Tylan. So shout out to him.
Absolutely. Well, let's stay on the offensive side of the ball really quickly, because there's a defensive player that we haven't talked about yet that we're going to talk about that I want to get into and I'm really excited about. But I want to talk about these two running backs, because I feel like, and I don't know who it was, credit to them for asking John last night in the post-game presser. He said, John, how open is this third running back? Like, how real is this third running back competition?
Mm-hmm.
And he brought up he was super ambiguous. Anytime John is ambiguous, you already know, you can usually decipher the real answer. He basically said, Justice has been playing well, but he's been injured and McCrary's running hard. And we really like Tyson Williams. And, he turned it into like a 3-minute answer when it was a very simple answer. Like, how real is this? Oh, obviously he's not going to say Justice has got it locked up. He's our guy. Or, we feel, but these two guys are showing out, man, between McCrary, that run by Tyson Williams to get in the end zone. Can I just say this, Glenn? Was it not reminiscent of early Gus preseason? I'm not saying it's going to be Gus Edwards. Like, I'm not saying that. He's a rare. He's a rare talent. But you remember when Gus came on the scene that preseason and he flashed?
Absolutely.
And then he went to the practice squad, and then obviously Lamar came in, all that stuff happened. But man, that run, it was just a power run, classic run. He 3 guys.
Yeah.
Right. And then McCrary's
power.
Yeah.
The shake he put on one and left him. Didn't even touch him.
Right. He displayed everything that you need a running back to do in one play.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was just incredible.
And he added a couple catches out of the backfield. I mean, he had 2 catches. Same with McCrary. Both had 2. Tyson had 15 yards receiving. McCrary had 19 yards receiving. So they both showing versatility. I mean, look, Tylan Wallace had 10 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown. McCrary, 15 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Both averaged over 4 carry, something that is not always a given from Justice Hill. So, I mean, I was ultra impressed.
Is it ever a given?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, you talk about a guy who averaged under 4 yards a carry on the greatest rushing team in history. And so while I get that Justice adds, he adds that element to what he brings to the special teams game. He's a good gunner. He's a good return guy, but he's not the number 1 return guy. He's still second fiddle there. And so if Tyson and Nate, either one or both could show that they can replace what he can bring as a coverage unit guy on the kickoff, then why keep Justice Hill? I mean, Tylan Wallace has been absolutely impressive, but so has Nate McCrary. Both of those guys have shown me more to this point already than Justice Hill has his entire career here as a Raven. So I don't know how, I just think it would send a bad message to the rest of the team if Justice Hill makes this roster and one of these guys or both these guys are cut, because they've both clearly earned their spot through how they've played. And then when we have Jeff Zrebiec on, which, by the way, if you haven't seen the show, check it out. He was awesome.
Definitely one of our best shows.
No doubt. And he talked about how Tylan Wallace flattened 2 guys in pass pro pickup and basically said, I've never seen Justice put that kind of performance out there. So it's not just that they're doing it on the ground and in the air, but they're also doing what's, considered one of, if not the most important, is protect the quarterback on third down. And he's shown they can do that. So,
yeah. And Jeff talked about how, just relaying or adding to your point, he talked about how John does put a lot of value in special teams guys, right? But one of these guys that's just really, valuable on special teams and nothing else is not going to make, 1 or 2 of them is not going to make this roster based on the numbers. It's just not going to happen. So is it going to be Justice? I mean, it's not going to be Levine. Like, there's a few other names you can throw in there. It's going to be one of them.
It's going to be one of them. And not to mention also, the DB group is a group that we pointed to where they're probably going to have to go heavy, right? There's so many good corners and so many good safeties. They're probably going to have to go heavy there. And if that's the case, those guys that are on the back end of those position groups are going to have to play a ton of special teams and play it well. So do we really need Justice Hill as a cover guy on kickoff and punt coverage when we got a bunch of safeties and a bunch of corners that we need to find snaps for to make their roster spot make sense? So I think that Justice Hill is very much on the bubble. And if he doesn't get back soon from that ankle injury and start making plays, then I think his days in Baltimore are certainly numbered. And I think it's a really cool story with, I think it's Tyson, I think is how I
is it Tyson? I think you're right.
That's how Jerry was pronouncing. So I'll go with Tyson from now on. And I think
Jerry, we trust.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm certain he certainly does his homework if he's the guy talking. So Tylan Wallace has done enough, in my opinion, to make this team. And honestly, though, I don't think, what Nate McCrary's done is not far behind him, if he is at all. I mean, both those guys have been ultra impressive.
Yeah, when he sticks his foot in the ground and wants to go north south, I mean, he really has explosion, right? Like when it's impressive and it's very impressive to the point where, like, I don't think he's just looking that way because he's playing against third or fourth string guys, right? Like he's just an explosive football player. Yep. He can get to the edge quickly, and when he plants and goes upfield, it's powerful. I mean, it's quick, it's strong, and certainly explosive. So it's going to be really interesting. But we were kind of transitioning there, so I want to keep going there. I want to talk about this DB room because we had Jeff on and we talked to him about this. And I'm not saying it was because of the show and the conversation we had with Jeff, but he did ask a similar question that you asked him. about the DB room to John Harbaugh last night. And he basically said, look, there's some guys out there making plays. You know, our Darius Washington is kind of who I want to talk about, but there's some guys out there making plays. How difficult are these guys on the back end of the depth chart making this decision for you, right? He asked John that. So, you know, I kind of want to address that same question by saying, look, this is the second consecutive game where Darius Washington has been around the football. I know that Jeff talked about, you know, he's not a speed guy, but he looked much faster last night than he did in the first game. He looked like he's never been overwhelmed by the speed of any guy he's playing against. So, you know, you were talking about these running backs earning a spot on their team, man. I mean, I don't know what else our Darius Washington can do. I mean, obviously, you know, you could have a couple interceptions or whatever, but he's always around the football. He's always getting his hands on the football. He's always making plays. Like, what else more can you ask for? So, what's your take on the safety room and the cornerback room, all that after the other game or the game yesterday?
Yeah, I think it further complicates things because I think what the coaches were probably hoping for is that Geno Stone will go out and have another fantastic game. And did he even play? I mean, honestly, I didn't see his name called at all. He didn't record a stat. So I'm not even sure he was out there. And if he was, he certainly didn't make his presence felt. But a couple other guys did. I mean, you mentioned Darius Washington. I mean, he mirrored that guy, doing that vertical route and then showed the ability to quickly locate the ball and make.
And didn't he make it look easy?
Made it look easy. I mean, made it look absolutely easy to find that ball and knock it away and almost made a play and was able to pull it in. But it wasn't just him in the secondary that I think really jumped off the page. A guy we haven't talked a lot about, a guy we kind of written off is Nigel Warrior. And
everywhere he's making plays.
Everywhere. He had a pass breakup on third down that forced a fumble. First a punt. And then he led our team in tackles with 4 solo tackles. I thought he was absolutely everywhere. And now
John likes his physical corners too.
No doubt about it. And I still have Nigel on the outside of the roster looking in, but certainly may have made his way onto the practice squad with that performance. And look, it's just like Jeff Zrebeck, or no, I think this was Ryan Mink who mentioned, which by the way, if you didn't see our Ryan Mink show, check that out. He was awesome as well. But Ryan also made a good point when saying, oh gosh, sorry, my dog is barking. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
And of course it forced me to lose my train of thought. But Nigel, no matter what, he jumped off the page. He was phenomenal. The guy played great. And I think that if he's through that's what it was. Ryan made a point that if you cut a good corner, it's not an easy spot to get through to your practice squad. It's just not, because everyone
high value position.
They need corners. And they look at Baltimore. They know we can develop corners here in Baltimore. I mean, just look, is there another room that's stronger or another team that's stronger at corner than the Ravens? I don't think you can find one. I mean, I think Denver's the only one that's close. They can, they're certainly pretty tough as well. But so I think it would be tough to get them through. I mean, look, they cut Devontae Harris and he got snatched up immediately by the Niners.
Yep.
So if they cut him, there's a chance he could end up getting claimed by another team who's more needy in that area. But, man, if they could squeeze that guy through the practice squad and have him waiting in case of an injury, that would be an awesome, awesome addition and a great add to have there. But that's kind of a big what if in my opinion.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, there's a famous saying in The Office. Michael Scott comes back and he says, oh, how the turntables, right? Yeah. And Josh Rosen got cut for Devontae Harris, right? Like literally to make room for a third, fourth string corner that is a special teams gunner.
Yeah.
Like that's higher value than how the times have changed, right? Yes, like goodness gracious. So, but the one thing I want to say, I want to do 2 more things here. We talked about the corners. I want to switch over to the receivers real quick. I know we talked about Tylan Wallace, but I want to talk about 2 receivers. I want to talk about James Prochet and I want to talk about Devin Duvernay, who neither of them I saw very much of as far as making plays. And I saw Devin Duvernay drop another slant.
Right through his hands.
Right, yeah, right through his hands. And the announcers mentioned that it could have gone through his hands because the throw wasn't the most accurate. He kind of had to stretch. He had to stretch, and he took a pop in the lower back / side area and things like that. But at the end of the day, like I feel like you got to make that catch. And I do think it was a Joe Flacco pass where there was like no touch on it and it was like 90,000 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But either way, whatever the issue is, your job is to catch the football. Mm-hmm. And I think he should have caught it. The other thing too. So I didn't see a ton from him, but I'm not as worried about that as I am did James Prochet record more than the one catch he had?
He had 2 for 6 yards.
Okay. So he had 2 then. I mean, it's absolutely nothing. It's putrid.
Nothing.
Like, what do you do with that? You know what I mean? Because everyone's saying he's a lock, but look, he's not a blocker like Miles Boykin, even though Miles Boykin is on the sideline. And honestly, as crazy as it sounds, he doesn't produce like Miles Boykin. How crazy does that sound? But like Miles produce it, like he gets in the end zone and you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard for me to say right now. I feel like I've been going back and forth so much with James Prochet.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't seen him beat enough guys, get enough separation, and take advantage of opportunities given to him in a game. Maybe in practice, but not in a game. And how much harder is that going to be when it's real, right? When there's ones out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, look, we've heard about is how James Prochet, first one on the field every morning in the practice field, and then last one to leave. He's been carving up the DBs in practice. But when are we going to see it in the game?
Yeah.
I mean, so my only thing is, like, is this a scenario where the Ravens are really not calling his number very much in games because they're trying to hide him for some reason? Or, like, I don't really understand this, because if you want to know what you got out of this guy, how about we draw his number up like they clearly drew up Josh Oliver? Like, they clearly wanted to see what they had from Josh Oliver. He got 10 targets.
Right.
And you look at James Prochet, got 2 targets. I mean, he caught both of them, but they were both like short yardage. One was a drag route on 3rd and like 6. He runs a 2-yard drag and gets tackled immediately. It's like,
right. It's just useless.
What are you seeing? I mean, how can you get a valuation on him? Now, we saw a ton of them catching punts, but
right.
You know, we know he can do that. You know, we trust that he can do that, but we want to see if he can bring anything to the offensive side. And until you start feeding him targets, we just don't know. I mean, it's frustrating because, you know, I'm tired of hearing about how good he looks in practice and seeing nothing from him in the game. I'm just tired of it. And I'm kind of the same with you with Devin Duvernay. This is 2 weeks in a row we've seen a pass go through his hands. Now, I get it. That pass should have been placed better. It should have been lower. Should have been more into his body so he could go to the ground as the ball gets there and not have his head taken off. And he certainly would have. But I'm still tired of seeing balls zip through his hands. I mean, this is a guy who's paid to catch a ball, so catch it. I get that you're going to take a lick here and there. And both times, I'm not sure if he would even gotten the first down. So it could have been all for naught, but you'd still like to see him hang on to it. He did have 3 targets, just the 1 catch for 5 yards, not necessarily making the coaches draw his number up more often. So, yeah, I mean, disappointed from those 2 guys in particular, but also disappointed that they didn't have more of a focus on those guys coming into this game.
Because it makes you wonder, right? Like, why?
Yeah, are you hiding them? Is this a situation where you don't want to show a lot of them on tape because you're hoping you can sneak them through the practice squad, or you're hoping – I mean, I don't think they're hoping to surprise the league and just have him light them up in week 1. I don't think that's the case. So what's the game plan here? So hopefully – in this upcoming Washington football game, they have more of a focus on him. We see him I want to see at least 5 to 6 targets for really, I'd like to see for both of those guys, but certainly James Prochet. And let's see what we got in the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's getting tiring. Like the same narrative, right? Like he's slaying it in practice, and then, bleh. You know what I mean? There's nothing out there. And like you said, there's only so much he can control. He can't control play call and things like that, but certainly it's getting a little frustrating. Now, I want to end by talking about the linebackers. First of all, LJ Fort, obviously his injury looks serious. I don't know if you got any follow-up news on that.
Confirmed. Yep, it is torn.
Is it? Yeah, okay. So he's done.
But it's a clean tear, at least. They said no other structural damage, just the ACL.
I mean, so not only did he take a pay cut, now he's I'll never forget the picture that the Ravens took of him signing his contract after they released him and then brought him back for less money. He looked so. I've never seen anyone more upset to take $1 million plus deal in my life. Right. Yep. So hopefully he gets back and has a quick and full recovery. not for the sake of us, but really for the sake of the fact that, you want him to continue his career and be able to make a living for him and his family and things like that. But it leaves us in the market. It leaves us with a little bit of an opening there. And I think you mentioned somebody had an interesting take about that. What did you hear, Glenn?
Yeah, shout out to Christopher Shook, who messaged us on Instagram and brought up a familiar name who could be a very real option for the Ravens if he's healthy enough. Because right now behind behind Fort is Chris Board and Christian Welch and Ataro Alaka, who's been banged up but Christian Welch has been playing and Chris Board's obviously been playing. But are those two guys just are they just big time special teams performers, or are they ready to step in if need be to the role that Fort was playing? I'm not so sure. But the familiar face that Christopher brought up was Patrick Onwasser. I mean, Peanut was here. He played very well. He got a decent payday to go play for the New York Jets, which a lot of former Ravens do.
Yeah.
But he's a free agent right now. I think he just had a workout for the Patriots maybe last week, but hasn't signed. If the money's right, I think I looked him up on Spot Track, and I think they had him like $4 million a year, somewhere around that. They have some room. I think they could try and make a deal work. Are you confident enough in the Chris Board, Christian Welch, and maybe even Ataro Alaka group, or do you think they should start looking for some help outside to get a little more depth behind Malik and Patrick?
This is a tough one for me. So I like Board. I mentioned before, I think that he could be the next Zach Orr type guy who just turns into an absolute tackling machine and is the Robin to PQ, right? Now, obviously we want that to be Malik Harrison, but I think that Board is just the type of guy that can fly all over. He's really athletic, really fast. So in that way, it kind of made me think of a Zach Orr type player. But behind him, I have very little confidence because Alaka's always injured. And Welch has made some plays. But I haven't seen anything from him in what I like to call real life. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of what it is. So it doesn't make me very confident. That said, I don't think they're paying $4 million for Peanut. They took their time with Justin Houston to give him. Yeah, exactly. So I think that it would be much less than that. I don't think it would be anything more than that what they were willing to pay LJ Fort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
but now he's a free agent, right? So
yeah. Now this John says things have a way of working. These things have a way of working themselves out. So we've been talking about the depth in the defensive back room between the safeties and the corners. But now, obviously not the way you want it to happen, but you kind of you've run into a scenario where maybe an Ardarius Washington does make this team. Maybe an Ardarius and a Westry make the, you know what I mean? So you've got one more slot to where maybe Levine fills in a little bit of that LJ Fort type role, right? Mm-hmm. And you get more value out of him that way, other than just special teams. So there's so many ways that they can attack this that are going to be really interesting. I don't think it will be a 1-for-1. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if they didn't sign a guy thinking we have this need that we need to fill. I think that they'll fill it via committee with like a Levine and a Board. So I guess, it was a really long-winded way of answering your question there, but I think I'm more open to the idea of signing one of these being able to keep one more young DB than I would be about getting Peanut back, is I guess what I would say. I'd see more value in that than bringing Onwasser back. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by it because he did have some big years with us. He's as Christopher also pointed out, he's a former safety, so I think he can certainly fly. He can bring some help to the team, but also he had some big years here. I mean, in 2017 he had 90 total tackles, and then in his last year in 2019, he had 64 total tackles in just 14 games, and he had 3 sacks. The year before he had 5.5 sacks. So I mean, this is a guy who certainly had some good moments here in Baltimore, and if the price is right, if they can get him for a very reasonably priced deal, I think it would not be a bad idea to bring him in. The big thing is he healthy? Because he played for the Jets in 2020 and wasn't healthy at all. Played in only one game, didn't even record a stat. So the guy has been banged up. But if his health is right and the price is right, I would not be opposed to bringing him back. The question is, what was the relationship on the way out? Did he burn any bridges? Was there any bad blood? So it could be something where he's not even on their radar. And we'll never know. But I agree in the sense that this could open up a spot rather than replacing with another linebacker or another inside linebacker, it could open up another additional outside linebacker spot. This could be the way we see your boy Jalen Ferguson find his way on the field, who, by the way, made a couple plays. He came this close to sacking the quarterback on one play. He was, bummed out. The guy ended up getting a couple yards scrambling up the middle. And then he played the run perfect one time. He stacked up.
I came this close to winning the lottery once, Glenn.
Oh, here we go. Now, I will say, I didn't see him make a play until the fourth quarter.
Right, and who was he playing against?
That's very true, but I did see him, and I had to give credit where it was due.
Fair enough. You're better than I, because he was playing against guys that he saw in college when he was at La Tech, and that's why he was dominating again.
Yes, exactly. So maybe he makes it, but I know you're not thrilled to hear.
No, he's the huge kid that hits puberty way too fast and dominates JV, but as soon as he goes to varsity, he just sucks.
Yeah, he hit his peak maybe a little bit too early for the Ravens, unfortunately. But one guy who has not yet hit his peak, and
I'm excited to talk about this one.
I'm going to turn you loose. What did you see from Daelen Hayes?
Daelen Hayes, man, it's been the most exciting, to me, the most exciting player that came out of this draft in the preseason so far. It's been so fun to watch this kid work, watch his motor. Yesterday, he was disruptive in every way. I mean, the run game. I think he had back-to-back plays at one point where he made a play in the run game and then turn around and he had the pressure on that quarterback where he had to make a bad throw. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was on a third down that forced a fourth down for them to, punt the ball. But, I mean, I saw 3 times where he popped last night. And I'm not concerned about Udafe, but he certainly has been thus far a little bit more disruptive than Udafe in his pop for me. But no concern for Udafe at this point. But I'm so excited for this kid because he's a great person. We heard about all the efforts, all the things he does off the field as a person, all the way back in college to now. He's got his foundation, things like that. And then just to see him be a all effort, all smarts, and then to just all heart type guy, like, it's exciting, man. I think this kid is gonna be a fan favorite. He's already becoming one of my favorites. And he is definitely more, I believe so far, than what we thought he was based on the analysis of the guy that we had from Notre Dame as a role type player. I think this kid, yeah, I mean, obviously he'll have a role. I'm not saying he's going to be an absolute superstar, Terrell Suggs type guy, but I can see his career trajectory being very similar to a Matt Judon. Or, some of the other guys that have come in later in the draft and the turnaround gotten paid, right? Zadarius and things like that. So I think he has the ability and has the want to, or, I know they play different position. Well, I guess they don't play different position, but even like a Pernell McPhee type guy, like that type of trajectory where he goes and gets paid by someone else. But he's another exciting guy for me. I was super excited we were going to be talking about him today and happy that he's finding success. So I was much happier about him producing in the fourth quarter than Jalen Ferguson.
Yeah, absolutely. And the back end of this draft is looking really, really strong. I mean, when you look at those guys, Tylan Wallace and Daelen Hayes, both being very late round picks, both making a name for themselves already. And it's exciting to see what these guys turn into. And I love the fact that when I'm looking at Daelen, I'm seeing him make plays in the run game and in the pass game. That's what I love, the versatility he's showing. Because if you're going to be an outside linebacker here and you want to get on the field, you better be versatile. You better be able to do multiple different things or do one thing so incredibly well that you force yourself on the field. But this looks like a guy who could turn into being a versatile player and certainly a key important role in this front seven. So, yeah, shout out to the Ravens getting some late round guys who look to be making a name for themselves. But I'm going to end with this, and then unless you have anything else, the Panthers need to fix their PA volume. I mean, first of all, ridiculous. You could not even hear in the beginning. You couldn't even hear Jerry and the guys talking. All you could hear was the PA screaming through the microphone. And then our guy Evan Washburn. I don't know how he even conducted any sideline interviews because it was ridiculous. Your PA volume should not be screaming through the television broadcast. Get it together. I know this is the preseason, but this is also the NFL. Get it together, Carolina. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Super frustrating. I couldn't take it. I kept trying to figure out why I had to turn the volume up so loud to hear people speak. And then, it was very noticeable very quickly. Look, we all have our technical difficulties, but if you're a professional football team,
Get it right. So Carolina, get it right. No, that's all I got. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know what your thoughts are on the game. Are you excited? Is there anything you're more concerned about and more confident in coming out of this game? Let us know all your thoughts. Daelen Hayes and everything else in the comments, and we'll talk to you guys soon.